Everyone. It's November 8th, 2021. It's 4 p.m. We're at the meeting of the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority Board of Directors. We're in the Carson City Community Center at the Bob Kroll Boardroom. Could I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Mike Jones,
Present.
Bobby Rader.
Here.
Steve Kim. Here. Stacy Giomi.
Here.
Steve Reynolds is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Can I ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, public comment. At this time, the public's invited to comment or discuss any topic that is relevant or written within the authority of this public body. Anyone on the line?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
Seeing no other public comment, we'll move on to item 5, possible action, approval of the minutes, October 11th, 2021, CTA board meeting. Does any board member have any corrections or anything to do with the minutes? No, if not, I'll ask for a motion.
This is Bobby. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I'll
Steve
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then hearing none, motion passes. That gets us to item 6. Again, approval of the minutes of the October 11th, 2021 special joint meeting of the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority and the Carson City Cultural Commission. Any questions or revisions on the minutes of the joint meeting? If not, if I could get a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the joint meeting.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Aye.
Stacy?
Yeah, I did vote. Sorry, can you hear me okay? I have bandwidth issues here. It's not a great connection, so I'm turning my video off. Hopefully that will help.
All right. Next, we'll move into the consent agenda, discussion and possible action regarding approval of the CTA statement of accounts. Does any board member have any item that they wish pulled from the consent agenda for discussion? Does any member of the public, would they like any item pulled and added for the discussion? Hearing none, neither. If I can get a motion.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
A second?
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, motion passed. We'll move on to item 10, for discussion and possible to approve the CTA fiscal year 2021 annual audit report and financial statement. David, I think we're going to get a summary from Casey.
Yeah, so thank you, Chair Jones. Dave Peterson, Executive Director, the CTA for the record. Nikki Nealon is on the WebEx right now, and she's going to present the fiscal 21 audit report and CTA financial statements. Oh, no problem, for fiscal 21. So Nikki, take it away, please.
Thank you, David. Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to work with you again this year, and thank you for the opportunity to present the financial statements. The first item that I'll draw your attention to is page 1. This is the independent auditor's report. It is our opinion And our opinion is unmodified to the financial statements. That's the highest level of assurance that is set that an auditor can provide on a set of financial statements. So congratulations, that's a great accomplishment, and we're happy to be able to provide that opinion. The next page that I will draw your attention to is page 8. This is your statement of net position. This shows the assets and liabilities of the authority on a full accrual basis. So it's slightly different than what you receive at each board meeting, and that's because of the adjustments that get reported at year end to take the financial statements that you receive to the full accrual basis. So as of June 30, your total assets were $2.26 million. That is actually up $562,000 from the year before. Cash was up $312,000, and lodging taxes receivable were up $251,000. Now, obviously, with the impacts of COVID on the tourism industry last year, your receivables were down. So this increase kind of brings it more into line with a normal year. Deferred outflows of resources are related to pension and other post-employment benefits. This is one of the adjustments that happens at year end. Those were $360,000, up about $102,000 from the year before. Total liabilities were $1,864,000. Those were up $285,000 from the year before. The majority of that increase is in other post-employment benefits. So those are the accrued liabilities for health insurance after separation for employees. Net position was $623,000, and that is up $403,000 from the year before, and that reflects the change in your activities for the year. Moving on to the next page, this is the statement of activities. This shows what happened during the year from an income and an expense standpoint that takes you to that change in net position. So for the year ended June 30, your governmental activities, which are your general government, culture and recreation, and intergovernmental, you had just shy of $2 million in expenses and $55,000 in operating grants and contributions. This deficit of $1,742,000 is then offset by your room tax revenues and interest income of $2,145,000 to give a positive change in position of $404,000 for the year. To put that into some perspective, last year, the room taxes were $1.8 million. So you can see the significant change that you had this year over last year in your financial activity for the year. Does anybody have any questions on the financial statements, or is there anything else that in the financial statements that I can explain or share with you?
Any question from the board? Before we go on, I would like to make one statement that Board Member Reynolds has now joined us, so we have a full quorum of board members. I just wanted that to make that known. And then I'll go back to questions for Casey from the board members on the financial impact statement. Well, I guess you're very good at what you do because it seems to have satisfied all the board members. I want to thank you for the relationship we've had the last couple of years. You know, we appreciate the hard work that goes in to these audits. But I'd also like to be remiss, having a great audit is for us is having a great accounting staff that does a wonderful job, and our staff is a staff of one, and that's Chris Kipp. And, she does a great job putting these together every month, being accurate, being attention to detail. So Chris, thank you for all your hard work.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would just like to echo those comments. Chris is exceptionally responsive to us and just provides us with everything that we ask for as soon as we ask for it. And without her, the audit would not have gone as smoothly.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to share with us, Casey?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and thank you very much for allowing me to present today.
Well, thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 11, the monthly non-action items. David?
Chair, if I could just interrupt, you guys do need to approve the audit. So
Oh.
because it's a discussion,
Yeah.
an action item.
There was one little item that we missed. So with that, I'll ask for a motion.
I move to approve the Carson City Cultural and Tourism Authority's audit report and financial statements for FY21.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Again, thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Now we can move on to item 11.
Yes.
I got ahead of myself. Maybe I was just starstruck by how good a job Chris had done. Anyway, Executive Director's update. David?
Thank you, Chair Jones. I just have two things that I want to touch on. First is the team submitted 3 grants last week, totaling $29,000 to help fund a new marketing campaign, a photo and video shoot, which we hope to do late next spring or early summer, in addition to participate in the Spring 2022 Expedia Co-op, and then to attend IPW next June in Orlando, Florida. So 3 grants are in. We will find out, I think, the first week of December, if my memory serves me correctly, when the Commission on Tourism meets to review and approve those grants. So quick update on the second cycle grants that we applied for with the Nevada Commission on Tourism. And then on the creative brand execution front, we are going to be testing 2 concepts starting next week on a qualitative basis using focus groups. And then that'll be followed by the quantitative sort of validation of those focus groups later on in November into December. So brief update on that front. So I'm excited to get this research underway. And I think it's going to be a great project. We're going to be engaging folks from our top DMA markets that we advertise in, and looking forward to it. So just a brief update on that front. So I'm happy to entertain any questions about either of those 2 items, if the board has any questions. If not, if I can go ahead, I'll move on to 11B, the transient occupancy tax, actual versus forecast. So in your packet, that's on the big 11 by 17 sheet of paper, we have our final numbers for August. And as you can see, we were up, and I would look at the last row, because again, fiscal 20 and fiscal 21 are just anomalies because of COVID. And so that last row has fiscal actual for August up about 28.62% as compared to fiscal 19, which was again our last, I hate to use the word normal, but unaffected due to pandemic, smoke, fires year. And I think we have a chance in September. We don't have all the returns in yet, but I actually think we may beat our 10% forecast. So we'll see. We've got a few returns left to come in, and with the holiday weekend, we're just a little behind on the returns. But I do feel like we might beat that by a little bit. So again, I'm very pleased with these numbers. We're going to hold our forecast for the rest of the year right now at 7.5% until we can kind of get a read on what October looks like, which we should have those numbers for next month's board meeting. So are there any questions about how we're tracking our fiscal 22 room tax revenue projections? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to 11C, events and sales update. And with that, we'll let James take it from here.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Just talking about some things that happened or is about to happen. We have the NTA Travel Exchange. This would be our third year participating at this conference. The first year was in 2019 when we met in person, and followed by a virtual meeting that we had last year. And this is the first time that we'll be able to go back into NTA in person in Cleveland. 2 years ago, they had a sales mission that we were able to partner with the RSCVA and also with the LVCVA, Convention Visitors Bureau down there in Las Vegas. And they did something a little different this year to where they made that a virtual sales mission, and that took place on November 4th. So we were able to meet with about 6 delegates, 6 tour operators, and give pitches about the region. Myself and Katie representing Reno, and a lady in Las Vegas. So that is already finished, and now the meetings that will be taking place next week on Monday in Cleveland would be the pre-scheduled appointments that we were able to secure through the appointment process this past month. So we're looking forward to that. Hoping to strengthen and build on some of the relationships that we've already made connections with. It's just part of the sales side of things is to continue to reinforce and have those conversations repeatedly till we can get in the door to some of these tour operators. In general, there are 2 other conferences that we're preparing for in January, ABA Marketplace, as well as Go West Summit in February. These 2 conferences, Go West Summit, the appointments open in January, whereas ABA, the appointments for us to secure appointments with delegates and tour operators will take place or finish on December 7th. So we're working hard to try and secure as many of these appointments as we can as possible. Upcoming events, we have a few of them. Polar Express Train will be taking place November 19th through December 24th. Really excited to bring the Polar Express trains back. I know David's been working really hard. I could hear him across the hall talking to people and trying to make sure that it runs smoothly. They are doing some test runs next week. Some of you may be aware of that. The Silver Snowflake Festival of Lights. This is our annual tree lighting festival that takes place that the Chamber of Commerce puts together. So we just want to get the word out there to let people know that this will be happening this year, and we're looking forward to having that event too. It's last week Thursday is when I found out the exact date of the there's an event that takes place in addition to this event the day before the Festival of Lights, and it'll be like the Holiday with the Hero Brew Fest that they put together. So Holiday Crawl, the Holiday Crawl, which funds the Holiday with the Hero event. So they'll be working pretty closely together because I believe they're like the day before or day after.
James or David, any update on how the sales are going for Polar Express? I know normally it's...
Yeah, I can give you a great update, actually, with the exception of individual tickets for a couple of Thursdays in November were sold out. So I'm very pleased. We were 90-something% of the tickets a week and a half ago, and my conversation with Allison and Leah this morning, a handful of individual tickets are left. So right now we have a lot of upset folks that they didn't purchase their tickets right away. So very exciting. And we're actually pushing, from a sales perspective, similar sales figure to 2019, in spite of having one less car. With our new ticket packaging structure, with being able to purchase tables, the VIP experience versus our coach experience, we kind of have different options available for those folks. And I should mention too that we're going to have shuttle service as well. And Chair Jones, in his day job as a general manager with Gold Dust West, that's the location for shuttling back and forth for those folks. They can choose to pay for parking to be right up there at the depot, or take the shuttle for free. So we've got some different options out there for people, just knowing how difficult it is for people to get in and out of the parking lot, especially if there's inclement weather, as well as trying to get back onto 50 if they're trying to come back to Carson City. So yeah, I'm very excited to say that our sales for PEX are looking very, very, very good. So I wish we had a fourth car. I think we could potentially push $1 million in PEX revenue if we had a fourth car this year with the way that the sales have gone. So a lot of demand, right? Because we could not run last year. Everybody and their brother came out to buy tickets early. So, and we, partnered. Lydia did a great job of working with the team from the V&T to get some social media out there and some regular ads and newsletters to get that buzz going about PEX. So yeah, nothing but positive response and feedback, except for those that didn't get a ticket for this year. So we said there's always next year. So yeah, thank you.
Good. All right.
Next event up is the Homestead Holidays. Parks and Rec put this event together, and we traditionally have supported this event from the get-go simply because we need more events to take place during the winter season, and these are one of the few events that they try to do to interact. It's funny, when we went to NTA 2 years ago and they were asking about winter events that take place in Carson City, we really didn't have anything to talk about, really. And so when Parks and Rec came up with this idea, we decided to support them, and we're hoping that this event continues to grow. If some of you went to Bonanza a couple of weeks ago, it was crazy. There were a lot of kids, and that event, it falls under a similar process. It kind of started off a lot smaller and has exponentially grown since then. So we're hoping that this event kind of follows that same structure in the future. And then last up is the Santa Train. I already received the tickets to print to help support this event coming up on December 4th through the 19th. And those are the major updates that I have for you. If you have any questions, I can answer them now. Santa Train takes place at the Nevada Railroad Museum, and it's more of a circle. They kind of go around the Railroad Museum there, whereas the Polar Express train takes place at the Eastgate Depot, and they take that train over, and they follow they read the book and kind of go through the story of the Polar Express, and they have to pay incentives to Disney, who owns the names and the rights to that, I think it is. Or is it Warner Brothers?
Warner Brothers, yeah. Rail events through, Warner Brothers. Yep. Yeah, so one's V&T specifically, Steve, and the other one is through, the State Railroad Museum. Yeah, the two, and they're different, right, experiences. We encourage people to take both, right, because they're just uniquely different from one another. So, yeah. Yeah, you bet. Any other questions for James from the board? And Stacy, just want to make sure we're able to hear you. Any questions?
Nope,
Okay.
you can hear me.
Okay, great. Okay.
I haven't fallen off my bar stool yet.
Glad to hear. Thank you.
Good.
All right. Thank you, James. With that, let's go ahead and move on to 11D, the Arts and Culture Update. Deborah Soul, take it away.
Thank you. Well, I've got quite a bit to share with you in terms of activities that have been underway and are underway over the past month. and moving into the rest of the month. As you're aware, the recommended content for the 2021 update of the Arts and Culture Master Plan was presented to the Joint Cultural Commission CTA Board meeting on October 11th. The plan content was approved and recommended, and a recommendation was made to have David Peterson work with the chair, vice chair of the Cultural Commission and the CTA Board and staff to clarify who should lead the implementation process for each of the identified activities. This was discussed and finalized in a meeting that was held in early November. So I'm now in the process of preparing the final polished draft of the master plan, which is expected to go to the Board of Supervisors meeting in the near future for considered adoption. The redevelopment special event grants were assessed by the Cultural Commission on October the 21st. Of the 7 grant applications that we received, 1 was not eligible because the event was outside of the time frame of this year's grant, and 1 was withdrawn. So of the 5 remaining applicants, all of them were awarded the funding with a $1,000 reduction in the amounts requested, which utilized all of the available funding for this year's grant program. This was approved by the Board of Supervisors on their meeting on November the 4th. I've commenced work on the public art policy, which will guide the city's public art program in accordance with best practice procedures and guidelines. I'm meeting with city staff from Public Works, Community Development, and Parks and Rec to get their input on various sections within that plan. I know there's great anticipation and desire to get started on the roundabout project, but I'd prefer to complete the policy before we jump into that project so that we can ensure that this important project is consistent with all of the requirements and criteria that will guide public art into the future from the policy. It also needs to include an inventory of the city's current art collection and a maintenance plan for all of their artworks. There are, however, some preliminary steps that we can get underway that are a part of any public art project. So getting input from staff from the various departments on aspects of the installation can commence, and establishing a project panel that can start fairly soon too. So the roundabout public art project, I'm meeting with staff from Public Works, Community Development, and Parks and Rec to get their input on this project. Part of that will be tied to their input in the public art policy itself. We can also move ahead with establishing that panel for this project probably early in the new year. And it should include representatives from a wide range of areas. And at this point in time, I'm looking at city staff from Public Works, so transportation and engineering, 1 or 2 cultural commissioners, 1 or 2 elected officials, 2 sculptural artists that would have expertise in the medium or mediums that are recommended for this particular project, 1 or 2 community representatives, and of course, Visit Carson City staff as well. So City American Rescue Plan Funds Working Group. This group was nominated by the Cultural Commission to explore an arts and culture allocation and has been meeting to identify possible projects that could be funded under this grant program. The project that has been put forward is the creation of a cultural district in the downtown area. A cultural district is desirable for several reasons. It becomes a tourist destination. Cultural districts are marketable assets that highlight the distinct identity of a community and encourage in-state, out-of-state, and international visitors. Districts also encourage business and job development. They create a hub of economic activity that contributes to the community, being an appealing place to live, visit, and conduct business. A thriving cultural scene helps an area to prosper when visitors are drawn to cultural attractions and they tend to patronize other nearby businesses, which results in the creation of new economic opportunities and jobs. Cultural districts also attract artists and cultural enterprises to this community. They address specific needs of the community. That is, cultural districts are very flexible economic development approaches which allow the community to make use of unique conditions, assets, and opportunities that are particular to Carson City. They also tend to enhance property values and to foster future local cultural development activity. So we'll see where that project goes. I'm continuing to work on the cultural mapping project. It's just database building. At this point, the current focus, I'm on a section on heritage properties and historic sites. So that's coming along. We're also exploring funding opportunities or funding possibilities for permanent outdoor festival and event amphitheater infrastructure in Carson City. And I'm currently meeting with city staff to acquire their input on this potential project. So it's very early stages. There's no guarantees yet, but it's, I think, very worth pursuing. Thanks. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Deborah from the board?
Yes, I have a question if I could.
Go.
Thank you. Maybe this is a question for Todd. If with that roundabout group, is the plan to make that a public meeting or public meetings with that body? I mean, who's putting that body together?
Hi, Supervisor Giome. This is Todd Reese, Deputy DA, for the record. Correct me if I'm wrong. I need some input from David or Chair Jones. Were you overseeing this with Nancy?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so Deborah's sort of the person that's assisting with the actual call for sculptor or call for artist. And then we're working with Nancy to put together the panel, right, that would review those bids that would come in from those sculptors or people that want to submit for the roundabout.
Supervisor Giome, my understanding so far is that it's kind of been delegated to staff, and then at some point, staff would bring this back before the board for the board's comments or approval of the artwork. I don't think at this time that the committee has to be subject to the open meeting law because it's not been officially created as a working group of the CTA. However, that being said, if it's something that's important enough, it certainly can be subject to the open meeting law. But I would just say if that's what you decide, please do that deliberately, because I know we don't like to inadvertently create bodies subject to the open meeting law.
Well, I just know that there was a mention of a couple of elected officials, and I don't know if that meant Board of Supervisor members or elected officials from state government or what that meant.
I think as long as there's, I would agree with you. If David could clarify that piece of it, that would be beneficial. However, as long as there's not a quorum of any one particular body on the panel, then I don't think there's a problem.
And Dave Peterson,
Right.
for the record, that's exactly, Stacy, that's exactly what we were operating under, is we might be able to grab a couple of CTA board members, perhaps a couple of Board of Supervisor members, as long as we didn't reach a quorum with any particular commission or board, that it was okay to kind of operate that way.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I mentioned this at Board of Supervisor meetings, and I will reiterate it here. We have one shot to get this right. It is the gateway to our community. It will be a feature piece in our community, and I really want to make sure we get something that is impactful and makes a statement about our community. I want to make sure we do it right. So I'm very interested in that. I'm not saying I need to be on the committee. I'm just saying that I'm very interested in it, and I would encourage all of you to have that same level of interest and concern.
Speaking for myself, Stacy, I couldn't agree more. I think this is a super important piece, as you said, that almost is like an identity for Carson City as people are driving in, and we want the community, the residents, to be proud of it, and also our visitors, right, who come into Carson City. So we're measuring twice or thrice and have yet to even cut once to make sure that we do get the whole process correct, and that we put out a great, I guess, bid or call for artists. And that's what Deborah is an expert at, having done these types of call for sculpture for big, giant public art pieces. So really relying on her expertise right now to help guide the process, but to make sure, as Deborah said, we're meeting with the people that we need to meet with within the city government as well. So we're getting all that input from everyone before anything gets released next year. But again, we felt in talking with Nancy that we should get the public art policy in place first. That way we're actually following, right, that policy with such a large piece of public art, such a visible piece of public art here in Carson City.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And I think just to take it a step further, I think I would like to see maybe as we, or after we get that policy in place, maybe a specific timeline of what steps we anticipate taking. So do we, and I'm not saying this is the way it'll go, but I'm just kind of asking, do we try and find artists first? Do we give the potential artists an idea on theme? Do we let them dictate the theme? I mean, those are all the things that I think I'd like to know, and I'd like this body to have some input to, as well as the Board of Supervisors, frankly.
Stacy, could I ask Deborah to weigh in on your concerns about the process?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Deborah, go ahead.
Deborah Soul here. The first step would be to create a brief, which would go out as part of the call to the artist. And that brief would contain information about the nature of the work, the parameters of creative expression, materials, dimensions, all of those factors that the artists themselves will work with on coming up with their proposals. And it's a multi-step process. Usually if you do a call for artists, you would accept submissions from a subgroup that you feel, it could be 2 or 3 artists, that potentially you think could create the type of work, the quality of work that you're after, and then they would work their submissions up around those parameters. And then, as I say, it's a multi-step process. You would make a decision on, based on the maquettes, the models that they put forward, and they're reimbursed during that whole process. So the more steps you take and the more artists you involve, the greater the cost. So there's a lot of variables to take into account in that process. And there's options that you can decide to go with as you work through each project. But that's generally the process.
Okay, so this working group, if you will, would then sort of try to set the stage with the brief, along with the technical experts from Public Works in terms of how big it can be and the dimensions and and that group would say, hey, we'd like, and I'm probably oversimplifying this, but we'd like the theme to be history of the West. I mean, I'm just broadly stating the category, and then provide that backup information that you said in terms of the physicality of what can fit there and what can't. Is that, I mean, a really,
That's correct.
You know,
That's a good summary.
okay. Okay, thank you. And then I'm assuming then this body, as well as the board, would be involved in providing input on that component.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I agree with both Stacy and David. I don't think there's going to be any more important project that happens next year that will have more eyes on it than this project. So the makeup of the board, and you would think there would be lots of interested community members to want to get involved. So, no, big project.
No, agreed. Thank you, Stacy and Mike. Any further comment, questions for Deborah from the board? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to 11E, Marketing and PR Update. Take it away, Lydia Beck.
Thank you. For the record, it's Lydia Beck. We've got a few things to go over. Throughout the presentation, you're going to see some photos that we acquired from this fall and for Nevada Day. So those are just some new assets to keep your eyes on. And we will get started on the website update. So we'll start with our top webpage content. And overall, for last month, we had almost 65,000 page views. And you can see the spike on the graph over Nevada Day weekend. People were definitely ready to get out, and just the feeling that you got being at Nevada Day, there was a lot of smiling faces and people were ready to have an event, and that was evident in our metrics from this month to around that weekend. So on the right-hand side is a new report that you haven't seen yet. It is the events with the most engagements on our events page and how many referrals we gave to our partners' websites. So you can see that our top events that people click to book or sign up for were the Nevada Day race, the 5K that happens that day, Blinky Man, Polar Express, the Wild Horse Theater Fairy Tale Express, the Wine Walk, and the Carson Hot Springs free concert and swim event. Our top pages visited this month on the left-hand side are correlating with our social media ads and our blogs, which you'll see here in a minute. Our hotels page is sitting at number 4, which is what we love to see. And we did sponsor the Ghost Walk this year officially and created a Facebook ad as well, which is that Forces of Nature at number 8 on our top content pages. And then you can see Nevada Day really ruled the roost for us in October with 8,300 page views with over 5 minutes average on page. And so we'll be continuing to optimize that Nevada Day events page year over year, and hope to continue to be a resource for our community and for our visitors for that events weekend, and continue to build upon making it a weekend event and not just a come for the parade. So website conversions, we have 3 major goals set up on our website for conversions. That's newsletter signups, visitor guide downloads, and then lodging referrals. Lodging referrals is when someone goes to our hotels page, or what's known as our places to stay, and they click on a hotel or lodging property, and it goes to their landing page. So that's as far as we can track it with the capabilities that we have right now without having a booking engine on our site. So that's as far as pretty much we can take it. We hope to have more in the future, but this is what we're seeing as our top hotels that are looked at. I went back quite a few months to see, and this was pretty consistent across the months. As far as our top 10 goes, some of them moving around. But I wanted to have you see September and October just to give you a comparison of what that looks like, and they're pretty neck and neck. And then on October totals for conversions total, we had 817 completes. So 506 of those were lodging referrals, 287 were newsletter subscriptions, which we run Facebook ads for and perform really well for us. And then our visitor guide downloads were at 22. We're not actively pushing that quite as much because we've had it around for a long time, and we're hoping to update that by next fiscal year. Social media updates. We had a great month on social media. We spent a total of about $3,000. $800 of that went towards the arts and culture promotion of the V&T train and the Ghost Walk. And you can see our top ads here are listed by landing page views. So we reached over 235,000 people, delivered almost 615,000 impressions, had almost 8,500 link clicks, and then the unique landing page views here were over 6,100. So we're driving a lot of people to our website. Social media is a great resource for us and a very affordable one. And we'll continue to push that monthly and continue to incorporate arts and culture ads in there too, now that Deborah is here with her lovely addition to our budget. Thank you, Deborah. On the bottom, you'll see the paid engagements. So these are the engagements from all of our paid advertising that we have across social. So you can see across all outlets, we had almost 116,000 engagements. So that's likes, shares, comments, link clicks, and others. The numbers that you see here are a mix of paid and organic. The engagements represented here are a little lower because these only represent our organic posts, the ones that we don't put money behind. So if we make a post, we can actually go back and put money behind it to make it a paid ad. So that's the engagements that you see on there. All the ads that we do in the back end of social media don't always show up on our newsfeed. So that's the difference between what you're seeing here. On the bottom, you're going to see our total audience growth from last month. Total, we are at almost 22,000 as an audience. Last month, we grew with over 300 people, most of that going between Facebook and Instagram. Here's what our top content looks like. So this is a mix between Facebook and Instagram. This is based off of reaction, so engagements with the post. So it varies between Nevada Day, fall colors, the Capitol reopening, Blinky Man, and a really great video that's acted for fall with a local family. And our PR report. So we had a couple of stories that we pitched internally. That was a Nevada Day, of course, and the new Mopo app launch. And those were pretty successful stories for us too. We do have coming, and we had one media journalist this last weekend. So we had 2 bloggers and 1 food journalist who's coming to Carson City this weekend. Over this last weekend, we had a family blogger, a mom blogger out of Sacramento. She has 6 children, and we really wanted to prove that this is a family destination. And so all 8 of them were here, and they had an amazing time. And so they stayed at the Staybridge. They have a 2-room suite that hosts 10 people. And so we thought that was a great way to showcase that we are really a family destination. And the next family coming in a couple weeks has 4 kids. So this is a family of 6. So we have a great itinerary planned for them. Over this last weekend, they were able to go to the Dia de los Muertos. They went to the Railroad Museum. They went to Scoops. They hiked the Waterfall Trail. I mean, they went to the Nevada State Museum inside too. So it was a great weekend. So we're really also pushing that you can do all these things in the winter and in our colder months as well. So we're excited to see what blogs will come from them. They have social media posts that they're doing for us too. So I'm excited to report to that as well. And we did have an influencer group over Nevada Day weekend too, and I will speak more about that here in a bit. So publicity value this month, about $18,500. We had 6 stories. We've had 16 stories to date. You can see we've reached just about 230,000 people this month, and unique visitors per month of over 70,500,000. And we focused a lot, you can see in the breakdown, about 72% was focused more on arts and culture. So many of our stories mainly came from the Las Vegas Sun and the Las Vegas Review-Journal. That's where a lot of the UVPMs came from, and it was about legendary Nevadans. In addition, we had more about Stewart Indian School and the federal investigation of Indian boarding schools that got picked up on MSN News. And there was also a lot of press on Mopo, which was picked up by the local news in Reno. And then we have obviously everything around Nevada Day, the Mile High Jazz Band concert, and the Nevada State Museum's 80th birthday. So those were our main topics of interest for October. For Nevada Day, as I mentioned, we did have an influencer group that came in. That was Nick and Jessica from Blue Blessed Adventure, who actually came on our July fam. We really wanted to continue the momentum and have Carson City on the forefront from their audience back in July. They live up at Donner Summit, and so they're more local, which we really wanted to push people coming down from Tahoe, having more awareness about Nevada Day, how awesome of an event it is, and how fun of a weekend you can make it. And so they did an amazing job showing that. They have a pretty strong local influence, and they did everything that you could do over Nevada Day weekend. So they're burners themselves. So I felt Blinky Man was really a perfect tie-in for them. And they actually ran into friends that they knew when they came down here that they didn't know were going to be there. So I feel like we really picked the right people. That was really authentic for Nevada Day weekend. Especially for someone who's not a Nevadan to be able to come and experience Nevada Day and have such a great time. They definitely felt like honorary Nevadans by the time that they left. So they did the hot air balloon. They cruised the west side. They did Blinky Man. They rode the rail bikes and did a great job doing that. And so Mopo from that weekend also generated 228 new users, which is a little over the goal that they thought they were going to for the launch. And so they did a photo contest. They offered $500 to the winner of the best photo from Nevada Day. So definitely had some buzz around Carson City. And we got some feedback from someone who just moved here who won the photo contest that he's been using the Mopo app a lot to learn more about Carson City, and he's really enjoying it. And lastly, we also had an entire photo and video shoot that weekend that was happening that Zach did an amazing job spearheading with Trespasser Productions. It went really well. We used a point of view drone, which makes you feel like you're inside a video game when you're watching it. And they coordinated with the hot air balloons to be able to fly over the hot air balloons and under them and around them. And we worked with a local family, that allowed us to follow them around for the weekend and get some great content. So exciting stuff to come. All right, and our Bandwango Pass. So we have decided and landed on the Hungry Hikers and Bikers Pass. So our first Bandwango Pass is officially underway and will be launched by November 30th or into the first week of December, worst case scenario. So what we've done is we've chosen multiple trails all around Carson City that pass holders will be able to check into on their mobile device at the trailhead, which uses GPS technology. So each check-in at the trailhead will be an entry towards a quarterly grand prize drawing, which will be a great weekend stay, and we'll work with our partners to be able to craft something that's really desirable to continue those check-ins. And then the goal is working with local retailers and restaurants that would provide offers like a discount or a free item that can be redeemed at their locations post-hike. That way, we're getting people on the trail and off the trail and back into Carson City to spend in our local businesses. And so we're really excited to see how this goes. We've been working with the DBA, talks with the chamber, and we've got quite a few people and local retailers that are signed up and restaurants that are willing to offer passes. So more to come on that. And lastly, we had some strong email marketing campaigns come out in October. Our goal is for large events like Nevada Day or maybe in June when we have multiple events usually, and sometimes in July, is really do kind of one reminder email a week leading up to that. And that's what we did for Nevada Day. Overall, we saw about a 30% open rate and a 4.75% on our clicks throughout each of those emails. And so you can see we have usually on average about 2,000 people that open out of our 6,500 people that we have an audience with. So we'll continue this pattern and continue to push out content as much as we can to be on the forefront and get people back into town and back into our events. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Any questions for Lydia from the board?
I
Go ahead, Bobby.
have a comment. I just want to thank the team for all they did to promote Stewart. Our museum for Nevada Day, we had over 200 people come,
That's great.
and we had some beading demonstrations and basket weaving demonstrations, and it went really well. So we really appreciate all that you did to promote us. We also met with the Mopo people several times. They spent a lot of time out there, so we really appreciate their support and their sensitivity to the issues at Stewart. They're really doing a great job with that. So
I'm glad to hear that.
And I also wanted to let you know that Friday we had a visit by a New York Times sports writer
Wow.
who toured Stewart, and he's doing a story with Koo Stevens, the track athlete from Urington who did the Remembrance Run.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that will be coming out soon.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
awesome,
Thank you for that update, Bobby. I've been wanting to connect with you on how Nevada Day went. So
It was great.
I'm happy to hear that.
Well, and if I can add something, I think it was wonderful because it gave people an opportunity to do something else. Again, parade's
Right.
awesome, but we're trying to make this into a Nevada Day weekend. So having the facilities open that people can go to outside of the parade time, I think is wonderful. So yeah, thank you, Bobby, very much. Any other questions for Lydia? Awesome. Well, the team did a great job this past month, let me just tell you, because everybody's been collaborating and working together in order to get things underway. And so I really appreciate the team's effort because this was a heavy month, a lot of stuff going on throughout the course of October. So exciting stuff. With no further questions, we'll move on to 11F, future agenda items. Does anyone from the board have anything they would like to be put on to the December agenda? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to 11G, upcoming meetings. So our next CTA board meeting, December 13th, right here, same room, same time at 4 p.m. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Jones.
Thank you, David. Good report. We'll move on to item 12, board comments or announcements or requests for information. Any requests or comments from the board? Bobby?
This is Bobby. I do have something I'd like to say. Last month, I brought up suggesting a land acknowledgement from the board, and from your reactions, I realized that maybe everyone is not as familiar as I am with that. And so I wanted to just give a brief explanation as a comment at this point. This is something that's very common where I come from in the Midwest. I believe it's pretty common in a lot of other areas as well, but maybe not so much in Nevada. So I do know that UNR has land acknowledgements that they use before they have events, as well as the Reno Arts and Culture Commission adopted a land acknowledgement. So I wanted to just explain what it is for those who've never even heard of it. And I'd like to use the description from the National Museum of American Indian at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. And they say that the land acknowledgement is a traditional custom that dates back centuries in many Native nations and communities. Today, land acknowledgements are used by Native peoples and non-Natives to recognize Indigenous peoples who are the original stewards of the lands on which we now live. And so before events or activities, or I always do this before I give a presentation about Stewart, I acknowledge the original inhabitants of Nevada. What the National Museum of American Indians says in their acknowledgement is, we gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose ancestral homelands we gather, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. It's very simple. It's just acknowledging the original inhabitants of the land. I did write a draft, and Todd is reviewing that draft now. So I'm hoping that at some point we can have some discussions about this at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. I think there's going to be more discussion with the city and on your proposal. But thanks for the clarification of what you were, getting at and what you want to present. Any other questions, board comments, requests for information? With that, we'll move on to item 13. I'll ask again, any public comment? Anybody on the line?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
All right, seeing none. Here, we'll move on to our last action item, and that's to adjourn. If I could get a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. This is Bobby.
We're adjourned.